All right, Coach, thanks for joining us today. Nearing the end of camp right now, just talk to us a little bit about your position group and how the offense is going overall.
Yeah, so fall camp, this would be the fourth time we've gone through the install with our players. So you start, really probably the fifth time actually, January doing workouts, not against the defense, and then you get to spring ball and you install versus the defense, and then summer OTAs, these guys are running plays on air, and then you get to fall camp. It's really the fourth, sometimes fifth time you're going through the install. So that's all those reps are so important for guys learning and progressing. And when you're watching some of these guys in spring practice, some of them look different from then to now because they're not thinking as much. There's still some thinking going on out there because they're still learning and growing. But guys are playing at a different speed because now it's the fourth time they're going through that install. So collectively, offensively, we're in a much better place just because we've been able to install more. We've probably got about 90% of what we would carry throughout the season in at this point. And guys are playing faster, and specifically from a quarterback standpoint, I think that's where you probably see it the most. It is a unique offense. Not everybody runs it, and at quarterback, we put a lot on their plate from a mental standpoint in terms of handling checks and handling audibles. And then the option phases that we have built into our run game, it takes time and it takes reps. Sometimes people will contact us and ask, well, how do you teach this and how do you run this? And it's not something that a typical offense can just take and just put in 1 week. It takes a lot of reps, a lot of time. So people are progressing and we're light years from where we were at the end of spring ball. Still plenty of time or plenty of reps to go, but we've been really pleased with how much they've grown since spring practice when we first got a chance to be out on the field with them.
Elephant in the room, how's the quarterback battle going?
So, it's pretty much dead even in terms of total reps between the four guys, between Nate, Caden, Trey, and JB. And that was our goal up until the first scrimmage, to make it as even as possible, get the guys as many reps as possible. We're very aggressive with having two fields practicing at the same time, so you're trying to maximize as many reps for the quarterbacks, but also for your development of your threes and your fours. Whatever that starting lineup is against Bowling Green, we know that by October or later, hopefully, or maybe sooner, that's not the same starting lineup you're going to have because you're going to lose a guy here to an ankle or something like that. So collectively, that's so big for us, getting your third and your fourth guy ready. But in terms of quarterback competition, we're still working our way through it. They were told, we were going to take it up until the second scrimmage for Fan Appreciation Day. And then you'll have two more practices that are technically fall camp practices. And then Wednesday of next week is our first Bowling Green practice. So by that Wednesday, I don't know. You have to ask the head coach in terms of when he wants to announce it. But those guys will know kind of where they stand in the pecking order. But we counted up the reps the other day, and it's split right down the middle between the four guys. They've gotten a lot of reps. And it's kind of one of these things. One guy, this guy, it's kind of like during spring ball. One guy stands out this day, one guy stands out that day. But as we get closer to the second scrimmage and get into in-season or Bowling Green prep, then it has to be really down to obviously maximizing the reps for the guy who's going to be taking the first snap, and then still continue to develop your second guy. But haven't got to that point yet. We still got one more scrimmage and then two more practices, and then after that we'll come to that conclusion.
How much will be on this scrimmage here then this Friday in terms of making that decision, or does the staff feel like it's kind of leaning one way?
I would say not leaning. It's still wide open. These practice might be at a higher premium than or more important in the evaluation phase, and as opposed to the scrimmage, because the scrimmage is Fan Appreciation Day. It's going to be a little bit more of a limited menu of what you're calling. Today, practice today is all over the place in terms of just what we're running, what we're carrying, and you're trying to see who can handle, how much they can handle mentally, how many different formations, motions, and trying to carry as much again. So I think Friday will be important because you're seeing them perform with people being there and being in an environment, a competitive environment where people are watching. That just makes it that much more competitive, and the pressure is turned up. But that will be a lighter day in terms of just what all they have to carry and process, as opposed to yesterday's practice, today's practice, and tomorrow. What day is it? Whatever day it is. Today, tomorrow, and Thursday before we get back to it.
This week, are you still trying to split the 4 reps?
We've started to kind of they were going to be even. Our goal was to make them even up until that first scrimmage, and then after that first scrimmage, start pulling back on certain guys. So we've started to do that a little bit this week, without one guy exclusively taking the reps with the ones, still rotating who's taking reps with the ones.
Gotcha.
Did you think at this point, you said it's pretty tight battle, did you think at this point you would see more separation than you have?
I mean, coming into it, I knew how hard those guys are worked, and you could still see, even though we couldn't be on the field with them when they're going against the defense during summer OTAs, you could still see the development and the time they're putting in. So I felt like what I saw in the spring, I was going to see an improved version of that, and just some guys made bigger jumps than others. So I didn't think we would know, like after the first scrimmage, okay, that's the guy, just because it's just too tight at the end of spring anyways. But I will say those guys have been phenomenal in terms of, like yesterday, we had a move the ball scrimmage, and Trey Lowe throws a touchdown in the back of the end zone, and JB Caden are sprinting down to go and celebrate with the receiver and celebrate with Trey. Caden threw a touchdown a couple of drives earlier, and the same thing. Trey, Nate, they're all celebrating with each other. So it's awesome as a position coach to be in that environment. Makes those conversations really difficult, because I was told most of my college career, until I tricked Coach Chow to let me go out on the field and play for North Greenville, I was the guy that, you're not the guy, you're the backup. And so, it makes it even more difficult, because those guys are just such team-focused guys and pulling for each other. And it's a breath of fresh air for me, but those guys are handling it as best they can and handling it really well.
What are you most emphasizing as far as points that you need to see and the coaching staff needs to see to separate from the pack and be named the starter?
So the biggest thing, we're tracking everything, completion percentage, number of attempts, number of missed assignments, turnover. We're tracking all their stats from every team period and 7-on-7 period throughout all fall camp. And the biggest things that we told them, we need someone that's not going to turn the football over, that's not going to have any missed assignments, and then the most consistent accuracy overall, not just in terms of their completion percentage, because that can be misleading through stats. I mean, if one guy has 10 drops and one guy only has 1 drop, the stats are not going to tell you the full picture, but who's consistently locating it properly. And then the fourth thing is who's out there making plays and finishing drives. Like, you can't just – I told them – I can check off the first 3 boxes by going out and throwing the check down to the running back 10 out of 10 times. I can't make the plays down there like they can, so they still have to make those big critical throws. But those are the 4 points for us: no missed assignments, taking care of the football, accurate, and then who's finishing drive, making the plays necessary to finish drives.
I think anybody that watched Liberty football last year, they saw the incredible ceiling Caden has, but he also had some, low points, losing the ball, fumbles, turnovers, things like that. Do you think he's taken a step as far as, his consistency this summer and into camp?
He may have taken the biggest step from end of spring to now in that category of taking care of the football and understanding what his assignment is, like really like a big step up, and that's a big credit to him putting the time in. And I think he knows how talented he is. I think everybody on the team knows how talented he is. And the conversation in the spring was, it's not going to go to who runs the fastest and who throws the farthest. And those things are great, but you can't make that the what you value most if it leads to turnovers and missed assignments. Those are drive killers, And he's taken a huge step in that to where he's correcting guys on the field as it happens, not in a negative way, but he knows, and he corrects himself immediately. Like, anytime he's made a mistake in the spring, I would have to tell him, this was the problem with what you did. Now, as soon as he does it, he knows, and he comes back and he tells me, I should have done that. So tremendous amount of growth from that standpoint in terms of just putting the time in and developing there.
If you have to, would you go back, like if you're coming down to a decision, like have you gone back, or would you go back at all the last year, even though it's a different offense, just to see in a game situation how they're handling certain things?
I would not. I wouldn't put that on there, just because I don't know what they knew or what they were taught and all that stuff. So I'm just basing off what I've seen since I've been here in January.
And you guys are just looking at one starter, right? Like, you guys aren't sharing that responsibility.
Correct. Yeah, just whoever we name, that'll be the guy. And obviously he has to continue to perform. But we don't want him going in and taking that first snap of Bowling Green thinking, oh boy, if I make a mistake here, I'm going to get pulled, and the next guy. You can't perform at any position, but especially at quarterback, because it's such a confidence and believing and trusting what your decisions you're making. And I think if you create an environment where the quarterback goes out there and is, if I make a mistake, I'm getting pulled, he's not going to perform at his best, and your team's not. So whenever we come to that decision, that'll be the guy. You still can obviously continue to develop guys as best you can in terms of reps, but once we name that guy, that's the guy we're going to stick with and rally behind.
One more, Coach.
What about JB? Do you feel like he's gotten to a place where he can master the offense at this point?
He picks things up very, very quickly. Mentally, in terms of processing, he's probably the most impressive one in that group, and it was that way in spring. That's one of the things the advantages that he had in the spring was he doesn't require a lot of reps. You can show it to him, he knows it, and it kind of sticks with him. It is something, I don't know if I would use the terminology, mastered it, but in terms of just as a coach, you feel confident with him going in terms of being able to handle some of the checks. I think we play at our best offensively when the quarterback can be out on the field and we're not having to peek to the side. We're still going to have to do that. We're still going to have to peek to the sideline and allow us to make some of the checks and make the corrections for the quarterbacks in game. But I think it's hard to get into a rhythm if you're doing that, 15, 20 times a game. If we can take 10 to 15 of those and put 7 or 8 of them on the quarterback, we play faster, we play at a higher level, and he's a guy that and I think they've all done a really good job there in fall camp, but him from the get-go, that was one of his advantages. He knows the blitz protection checks. He knows when he needs to get out of a certain play. And I think that's one of the more impressive traits that he has. And sometimes is that the most impressive trait when you're talking about a combine? Maybe not, but we need that in terms of us executing and performing the way we need to on game day.